Yes, hello everyone. I'm Tommy. Thank you for always watching my videos. So once again, I'd like to introduce some practical advice for therapists and trainers to use in surgery. Today's theme is exploring approaches that might be tried to improve winding. So let's get started immediately. First, we'll examine the principles behind winding. The physical condition commonly known as winding refers to the wound shoulder. When we say wound shoulder, we mean that the shoulder blade protrudes slightly forward. This can also be expressed as the shoulder blade having a strong abduction movement. Fundamentally, the shoulder blade rests on the surface of the rib cage, so the shoulder blade has a slight angle. So the arm's position tends not to be directly sideways or behind, but rather it's more natural for it to go in the forward direction. So the way in which your arms wrap is a skeletal structure that is likely to occur. It's somewhat uncomfortable to constantly keep your arms sideways due to the skeletal structure. The action of moving your arms in the forward direction is not bad in itself. However, if this builds up over time and causes stiffness in the front and back muscles, or if a strong forward-leaning posture causes pain around the hip, that is not good, and it needs to be addressed by improving the winding. Today, I want to introduce a few actions to improve this hunched posture. But first, let's start with understanding the structure. As I mentioned earlier, this hunching condition involves the should blades moving forward, meaning the scapula is distancing itself from the spine, and I believe this subduction of the scapula is strong. In other words, the scapula is being pulled from the front, and the right shoulder process is being pulled forward. There's a protrusion on the front of the shoulder blade called the right shoulder process, and if this is pulled forward, the shoulder blade will inevitably jut out forward. The typical muscle involved is the pectoralis minor. So if the pectoralis minor attached to the chest is tense, the scapula will inevitably move forward. Therefore, the scapula tends to move easily forward. So the first thing we should do is relax the pectoralis minor and chest muscles. Moving on to the second point. The second point is about the arm. I want to look at the relationship of the humerus. When the shoulder is hunched, the shoulder blade tends to flow outwards and forwards, and the humerus itself is pulled forward. In simple terms, this means the humerus is slightly turned towards the extension. Everyone should try this. If you are sitting in a chair now, try to rotate your arm joint forwards and inwards. The shoulder blades and shoulders are all oriented forwards. If you try to turn them the other way, the shoulder blades will go backwards and your chest will tense up. Your shoulder curls due to the shoulder blades moving and the upper arm bone turning inward, signaling a strong inward movement. Let's think about what muscle is generating this inward movement. The muscle most likely to do this is the pectoralis major. The large pectoralis major muscle in the chest is attached to the outer part of the upper arm bone. So when the pectoralis major muscle contracts, the outside is pulled inward, causing the arm to rotate inward. When the chest becomes stiff, the arm turns inward. Therefore, stretching the pectoralis major muscle is a useful strategy. This means that stretching out the pectoralis major muscle is a very effective approach. In addition, the muscle that extends the humerus is a muscle derived from the back surface of the scapula, which is called the subscapularis muscle, or the brachial muscle, which starts in the septum of the shoulder blades. The brachialis muscle starts at the scapula, passes under the armpit, and attaches to the front of the humerus. Therefore, when the contraction movement of the muscles occurs, the humerus is pulled inward, basically going to relax the pectoralis minor and pectoralis major muscles as well as the armpit muscles is an important approach idea. However, the approach idea around here is kind of an image. I think that the fact that the arm is in front of you means that the muscles on the front side are stiff and you need to stretch the front side to improve it. And more importantly, that's the third point. The third point is the relationship between the elbow and the elbow. Basically, I think that the state of the wound is that the elbow is always flexed. If you have a curly shoulder, your elbow is always bent. It is quite a difficult position to make a winding with the elbow extended. Basically, if the elbow is flexed and the elbow is not open, The shoulder will turn inward when the palm is turned downward. That's exactly the attitude of desk work, isn't it? Therefore, in order to correct the position of the winding, it is necessary to rearrange the position of the elbows, not just the chest and shoulders. The muscles associated with the elbow also need to be approached. The most important muscle here is the biceps. In many cases, stiff biceps causes elbow flexion and shoulder extension to cause the shoulder itself to curl up. If you can stretch your biceps properly, I think it's pretty refreshing. So in today's video, I would like to end with an introduction to stretching the biceps muscles. The biceps muscle is the muscle that runs over the humerus. There are two starting points named biceps. The first is the protrusion on the front side of the scapula, the right shoulder process, because it is attached to the right shoulder process. When the biceps muscle contracts, it pulls the right shoulder process forward. The other is in this upper part of the shoulder blade, which is called the upper tubercle. The muscles that start at these 2 points run over the humerus and jump over the elbow joint. It is attached to the outside of the skull on the side of the skull. The basic task is to bend the elbow. It's the flexion of the elbow. The other role is to turn the elbow outward. Please give this a try to Mr. Ms. With your elbows bent at about 90 degrees, you turn your palms toward your face. It's a movement that raises the palm from the bottom to the top. It is a movement that goes to turn the elbow joint outward. At this time, your biceps will feel a little swelling. When you rotate your elbow outward, like when you move overseas, your biceps contracts effectively. The job of the biceps is to flex the elbow and move it overseas. So, during a stretch, we perform the opposite motion. This includes the inward movement of the elbow and the progressive movement of the elbow. You need to be in a position where you stretch with the elbow turning inward. Let's actually perform this movement. Firstly, during a stretch, ensure the humerus is properly fixed. With the humerus fixed, initiate the forward rotation of the elbow joint. You could call this the inward movement of the elbow. With the humerus fixed, rotate your elbow inwards. In this position, you lower and extend the elbow. Indeed, the biceps in action releases significant contraction force. This can be done in a supine position like the one you are in now, or you can approach it in a sideways position with your body slightly upright. Anyway, what you need to do is fix your humerus and keep your elbows in a forward underwater position. It is a movement called pulling backwards so that the elbow is extended. And at this time, if the fixation of the humerus is weak, the arm will be. If this happens because there is a large flow backward, it is expected that the chest muscles will be stretched instead of the upper arms. So I think it's a good idea to fix the humerus properly, put the elbow in the water, and pull it backwards. If you don't feel stretched, even if you do this movement or if your arms flow far backwards quite a bit, you can think of it as the shoulder joint going inward to the extension together, and in that case, the humerus is the first thing to do. It's good to turn it in the outside line direction and turn it in the outside direction to fix it. After creating that position, it's quite a lot to move the elbow into the C and pull it backwards. I think that the biceps muscle is a big stretch because when you stretch your biceps, whether you're lying down, lying on your side, or lying on your back, it's all on the same structural principle. Please keep these points in mind, yes, but today I'm going to introduce you to an approach to improving the winding method. The technique known as winding up causes the scapula to flow in the abduction direction. It is necessary to approach the muscle that is pulling the scapula forward. First of all, there is the pectoralis minor muscle of the chest. The pectoralis minor muscle is attached to the right shoulder process. It pulls the scapula directly forward. So, an approach to the pectoralis minor muscle is necessary. Once you finish with the pectoralis minor, it's good to approach the pectoralis major muscle next. The pectoralis major muscle attaches on the outside of the upper arm bone. If it becomes stiff, it will pull the humerus towards the front and internally. To prevent this, performing a thorough chest stretch is essential. This includes the bicep as well. There is a need for acquiring a range of motion. In a wound-up state, the elbow is flexed. When the elbow is strongly flexed, the shoulder is easily pulled forward. Therefore, it's important to straighten the elbow and ensure a range of motion first. It would be beneficial to understand the principle of this movement and develop an effective approach. Please check out a more detailed technique video summarized in the summary section if you're interested. Also, please check out this video. With that, today's video concludes. Look forward to the next one. Thank you always.